Sure. I'll just play some music in the background, okay?
Yeah, you can.
Hello, everybody. It is quite early this time. Silver Black, hello, thank you for joining. And Maddie. My name is Teacher Judith. So I think last time when we did the read, I was going through the first chapter of the very first book of Harry Potter. So we will be continuing that today. So yeah, you can stick around for that. Hopefully you guys like the series. If you don't, I highly recommend reading it. It's a very, very fun read. Or maybe fun's not the right word, but a very emotional roller coaster. So it's something that you can really feel a lot for. And you end up wanting to champion the characters, which is what makes the story so compelling. But we will go through a lot of other things, especially in terms of how descriptive and emotional the text is in general, okay, that you can definitely use to understand what you read a lot better, as well as to maybe incorporate those things into your own writing. Even if it's compositions in school or if it's your own recreational thing, I highly recommend trying to write your own thing because it's a very good way to just express yourself. Yeah. So this was the last page that we'd gone through the last time. I think we got through 20 pages. That's that's quite a lot. I do think I'm here for quite a decent amount of time today, so we'll be able to do quite a lot more. So yeah, so if you're sticking around, thank you for joining. Okay. Yeah, please leave your comments. Let us know if you'd like to see more of this book, or if you have other book recommendations, maybe, give us a follow if you like. But yes, I will continue. Wait, no. My purpose of showing this last page was to see where we left off. So we'll go through just the last paragraph for some context before we get to the next page. Okay. Luna Lovegood, you are clearly on the right life. Yes, welcome. Okay. So our last couple of paragraphs, it was, it seemed that Professor McGonagall had reached the point she was most anxious to discuss. The real reason she had been waiting on a cold, hard wall all day, for neither as a cat nor as a woman had she fixed Dumbledore with such a piercing stare as she did now. It was plain that whatever everyone was saying, she was not going to believe it until Dumbledore told her it was true. Dumbledore, however, was choosing another lemon drop and did not answer. Yes, we did go through this part about how she's going through all these emotions of having to bring up this important matter to discuss. And Dumbledore could not care less. He's enjoying his sweets, okay? He's got a sweet tooth and I respect him for it. Nothing is going to get between that man and his sweets. Okay? So what they're saying, she pressed on, is that last night Voldemort turned up in Godric's Hollow. He went to find the Potters. The rumor is that Lily and James Potter that they're dead. Dumbledore bowed his head, and Professor McGonagall gasped. Lily and James, I can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Okay, so when we basically, I think I may have given you a cliffhanger last time because we were on the precipice, the very edge of the big reveal. okay, as to what was going on for the first couple of pages of this book and why everybody was so obsessed with that street, right? And that street didn't have anything to do with Godric's Hollow. Okay, the main street we're talking about is Privet Drive, right? So let's continue. Okay, so Lily and James, I can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Oh, Albus. Dumbledore reached out and patted her on the shoulder. I know, he said heavily. Okay, notice that, okay, this is a theme we've been using in our recent classes at WOW, where instead of saying simply he said or he murmured, these kinds of things. While murmuring and mumbling, these are good words to use as well. But we can always use our dialogue tags. We can always make our dialogue tags interesting. Okay? So, dialogue. Oh. Okay? So by saying he said heavily, okay, it suggests that, there is some emotion behind, there's some weight behind his words. Okay? So this is just a good example to use. Professor McGonagall's voice trembled as she went on. That's not all. They're saying he tried to kill the Potter's son, Harry. But he couldn't. He couldn't kill that little boy. No one knows why or how, but they're saying that when he couldn't kill Harry Potter, Voldemort's power somehow broke. And that's why he's gone. Dumbledore nodded glumly. So from what we know from Dumbledore so far, he's someone who maybe doesn't ramble on as much, okay? But like in the previous paragraph, okay, he waited for Professor McGonagall to give him this information, and then he merely looked down and there was enough confirmation for Professor McGonagall. So similarly, okay, she's giving us all this information, all these rumors that she's heard, right? And she's giving it to him and trying to get an affirmation from him just to find out whether it's true or not. And all he does is nodded. He nodded glumly. So glumly is another good word for sadly or heavily, okay? So it's true, faltered Professor McGonagall. Falter here means that while earlier she might have been saying things quite quickly, right? That she's running through all this information, but now she's like, oh, maybe I don't want to be saying all these things that I hope are true because I don't want them to be true, right? So after all he's done, all the people he's killed, he couldn't kill a boy? It's just astounding. Of all the things to stop him. But how in the name of heaven did Harry survive? Okay, so now we've established this character, right? We've mentioned you-know-who as well as Voldemort, okay? They're both the same person. Okay, we established that this person is an evil person, right? He has committed a lot of murder. He's killed many people, but he's been stumped in front of a little boy that we now know as the Potter son, so Harry Potter, who is our main protagonist of the book, right? So it's just astounding, she said, okay? It's astounding is a very neutral word for shock or for shocking or surprise, right? A good word. Okay, so you can say it stunned them into silence, right? So of all the things to stop him, but how in the name of heaven did Harry survive? We can only guess, said Dumbledore. We may never know. Professor McGonagall pulled out a lace handkerchief and dabbed at her eyes beneath her spectacles. Dumbledore gave a great sniff as he took a golden watch from his pocket and examined it. It was a very odd watch. It had 12 hands, but no numbers. Instead, little planets were moving around the edge. It must have made sense to Dumbledore, though, because he put it back in his pocket and said, Hagrid's late. I suppose it was he who told you I'd be here, by the way. Okay, so here, a good way to show that, okay, this is a good means to showing, not telling, okay, which is a very good skill to have. Okay, she pulled out her lace handkerchief and dabbed at her eyes. When you see she dabbed at her eyes, it suggests that she was crying, right? So she dabbed at her eyes to dab at the tears. But we're not saying that she did it sadly. We don't need that, because in this instance, this description is enough. Okay, you get what she's doing. Okay, Dumbledore also a great sniff that suggests that it was like a heave, a sigh, like, okay, let's move on. Okay, because yes, we are sad, but unfortunately the world keeps turning, right? And they are there for a mission. Okay, so we know that Dumbledore came to Privet Drive for a reason. Now that we still don't know what that reason is, okay, but we know that it maybe has something to do with Harry Potter. And now we know we have an introduction of a third character, okay, Hagrid. Okay, we don't know who Hagrid is, but we know that we are waiting for Hagrid because Dumbledore says Hagrid's late. Yes, said Professor McGonagall. And I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you're here, of all places? Okay, this is another good tool because this book does a very good job of making you feel like you're one of this crowd, even though you are a reader. Because McGonagall is in your position, right, as the reader. We don't know what is going to happen. She's also along for the ride, but she's even more, you could say, nosy. If we could be in the book, we would be her right now, sitting on that wall, wondering what's going on because we want to know so badly. But we know that Hagrid and Dumbledore have this little secret, okay? So we're going to find out. I've come to bring Harry to his aunt and uncle. They're the only family he has left now. You don't mean... You can't mean the people who live here, cried Professor McGonagall, jumping to her feet and pointing at number 4. Dumbledore, you can't. I've been watching them all day. You couldn't find 2 people who are less like us. And they've got this son. I saw him kicking his mother all the way up the street, screaming for sweets. Harry Potter, come and live here. So she is in disbelief, right? This is something that she agrees that is not great. Oh, hello. Hi, Momo-sana. Hi, Janelle. Hi, can you see me? Yes, I can see you. Okay. Hi, Rachel. Okay. Yes, I'm Teacher Judith. Hi, Samantha. Yes, I definitely recommend reading Harry Potter. If you like fantasy elements, if you like books about friendship that have a lot of adventure, definitely. Okay, if you've never read Harry Potter before, it's a very immersive read. Okay, I read this series when I was a child, and it was still, all the books hadn't come out yet. So it's still one of my favorite books of all time. So I'm very happy to be doing this read because I hold this book series very close to my heart. Hi, Kate. Should I get a Kindle? Well, you can if you like, but you don't necessarily have to. I don't know about you, but I like the feel of physical books in my hands. I am using a digital copy today for the purpose of annotating so you can see what we're going through. But yeah, digital, having ebooks on your phone or on your computer is also a nice thing. If you don't know, actually, there's an app called Libby. Okay, it's for the libraries. Okay, you can actually pull up if you have a library membership in Singapore, you can actually borrow ebooks from the library onto the Libby app and you can read it there. So you don't necessarily need to buy an entirely new device just to enjoy reading. Okay, so I definitely recommend that. Okay. Hi, Violin B. Yes, yeah. So if you read a lot, a Kindle would be useful, but it's not entirely necessary. Amelia asks, which house do you think you are from? Can you guess? Can you guess what house I'm from? I've actually done the Pottermore quiz online. So, yeah, maybe you can guess what house I'm in. You like Slytherin? Fair. Slytherin is very cool, very interesting house, but yes. Can you see me? I actually agree. Hufflepuff is the best house. I don't know if that gives it away to my house, but yes. Okay. Hello, Chris Redfield. Thank you everyone for joining the live. Okay, I hope you're having a nice Tuesday afternoon. Okay, it's not quite afternoon, but it's also not quite early morning. So I will call it a morning afternoon, but yeah. Okay, I will continue with the book. Okay, thank you so much for leaving comments and joining our live. Okay, we'll keep reading together. Yeah, again, let me know if you end up going to find this book and reading it on your own and tell me how you feel about it, okay? So, where were we? Oh, yes. Yes, so Professor McGonagall has basically told us that she does not approve of this decision of Dumbledore, or on Dumbledore's part, because yes, they might be their only family, but she says that they're worst sort of people, right? They've got a son who's maybe quite loud and always wants to have whatever he wants, really, okay? And she was so shocked she jumped to her feet, okay? So that suggests that she really does not appreciate this. Also knowing Professor McGonagall's character, because in the start we've already learned that she's quite severe, she's someone who wants to be taken seriously, okay? So we can also suggest, it can also suggest that she doesn't emote very randomly or for no reason, okay? "It's the best place for him," said Dumbledore firmly. "His aunt and uncle will be able to explain everything to him when he's older. I've written them a letter." "A letter?" repeated Professor McGonagall faintly, sitting back down on the wall. "Really, Dumbledore, you think you can explain all this in a letter? These people will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry. Every child in our world will know his name." So this is established, okay, even before Harry knows about this, even before anybody else does, okay, that this matter is so grave and so life-changing that everybody is going to know this boy's name, okay, because it has to do with Voldemort, right? And this is also good imagery. So in the previous page, she jumped to her feet in shock and dismay, right? Now, she has sat back down, okay, after saying this faintly, because she knows what? That Dumbledore is someone that she can't just convince to change his mind. He has made up his mind and he's come there to carry out this thing that is so important. Without her, she wasn't supposed to be there, okay? She's only there because Hagrid had mentioned it to her, right? So there's no way that any plan is going to change and this is going to happen. So she sat down in, you could say, in defeat, okay? "Exactly," said Dumbledore, looking very seriously over the top of his half-moon glasses. "It will be enough to turn any boy's head. Famous before he can walk and talk. Famous for something he won't even remember. Can't you see how much better off he'll be, growing up away from all that until he's ready to take it?" Professor McGonagall opened her mouth, changed her mind, swallowed, and then said, "Yes. Yes, you're right, of course. But how is the boy getting here, Dumbledore?" She eyed his cloak suddenly, as though she thought he might be hiding Harry underneath it. "Hagrid's bringing him." "You think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this?" "I would trust Hagrid with my life," said Dumbledore. "I'm not saying his heart isn't in the right place," said Professor McGonagall grudgingly. "But you can't pretend he's not careless. He does tend to..." What was that? So now we've also established, okay, we know a little bit about Hagrid, okay, this new character. Okay, he's someone who Dumbledore trusts with his life. So we know that Hagrid here, to some degree at the moment, trustworthy. Okay, maybe a bit clumsy. Because this is what McGonagall is saying, right? That yes, he's amazing, he's trustworthy, but he's a bit clumsy. Okay, his heart is in the right place, she says, but a bit careless. Okay. I think this can be said about most of us, to be honest. Yeah. So, how is he getting there? Okay. So, something interrupted her speech. So, he says, a low rumbling sound had broken the silence around them. It grew steadily louder as they looked up and down the street for some sign of a headlight. It swelled to a roar as they both looked up at the sky. And a huge motorcycle fell out of the air and landed on the road in front of them. So quite a fantastical thing, right? They heard this low rumbling sound that they thought, well, maybe is an engine. So they were looking around and they were looking down the street, because if you're thinking of an engine, you're thinking of maybe a car or some kind of motor vehicle. So you're looking down the street, looking at the road, like, okay, where is this vehicle? But instead of coming up the road, it came out of the sky. So it descended upon them from the sky, which is something that is obviously out of this world, right? It is not a muggle or human thing to do. Okay? So if the motorcycle was huge, it was nothing to the man sitting astride it. Astride means he's sitting on the bike with his legs on either side of it. Okay, so you would say I was sitting astride a horse, for example. Okay. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man and at least 5 times as wide. So imagine how large the motorcycle is, and then imagine how large the man is. Okay, so we're literally talking about him being a giant. Okay, he's not human. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wild. Long tangles of bushy black hair and beard hid most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. In his vast, muscular arms, he was holding a bundle of blankets. Okay, so many good things, many good descriptions here. Okay, long tangles of bushy black hair. He probably had, you can imagine, hair similar to mine maybe, but a lot bigger. Okay, curly, maybe a little bit wispy, maybe everywhere. Not neat is what they're trying to say. Okay, but we can also suggest many things from this. Okay, either that he is someone who keeps it like this intentionally, but the other side of the coin is he just came out from the sky, right? Imagine the speeds people are traveling at when they're traveling in the sky, for example, an airplane, right? You know, all the wind that's happening. Okay, so you could say that his hair is also windswept, okay? It's very, very large, very lively due to his mode of transportation, okay? Because a motorcycle would have your head exposed, right? To some degree. Or your body as well. Yeah. And then here it says, he has hands the size of trash can lids. I'm sure you know what our trash cans look like, right? Even if it's a Singapore, like trash can in Singapore where they're green or whatever color, okay? That's still quite large. But I would imagine here they're talking about those silver trash cans that, you know, look like this. I am obviously not an art teacher, okay? But imagine how large these trash can lids are. And then they said, his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. I don't know if you have any concept of how big a normal dolphin is, but here, okay, we imagine our feet are regularly not that size. So in his vast, muscular arms, he was holding a bundle of blankets. Okay, so this is to show the contrast, right? Vast is a word that we use to describe the ocean, the fields, okay? So if we're saying his arms are vast and muscular, he's very large, okay? And he was holding a bundle of blankets. Also here, all of these things, obviously, he does not have baby dolphins for feet. He does not have trash can lids for hands, okay? They are all things we call hyperbole. Okay? Exaggerated words for description. Very good to really bring to life this character. Okay? Hagrid, said Dumbledore, sounding relieved. At last, and where did you get that motorcycle? Borrowed it, Professor Dumbledore, sir, said the giant, climbing carefully off the motorcycle as he spoke. Young Sirius Black lent it to me. I've got him, sir. No problems, were there? No, sir. House was almost destroyed, but I got him out all right before the muggles started swarming round. He fell asleep just as we were flying over Bristol. Okay, so a couple of things here. Another introduction of a character, Sirius Black. We don't know the gravity or to what extent he'll be in the story at this point, but we know that this is character who lent him the motorcycle. So to that degree, it can suggest that Sirius Black is on our side, right? Because of the whole Voldemort debacle, there is 2 sides of this. Okay, so this person, Sirius Black, is probably helping us. Okay, so the house was almost destroyed, but I got him out all right before the muggles, again a word that we've been seeing a few times, okay, started swarming round. He fell asleep just as we were flying over Bristol. Bristol is another city, another place in the UK. So now where they're in Privet Drive, that's Surrey. Okay, so two different areas. It would take some time to travel between the two places. Okay, and also it says house was almost destroyed. So there was quite a lot of things that are happening there, right? Because from previous paragraphs, we learned that Voldemort tried to kill Harry. So it suggests that all of this is happening within a couple of hours at most, or within the same night. Okay, so there was a lot of some battle, some issues happening, okay, and the house obviously was taken in this issue. Okay, Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall bent forward over the bundle of blankets. Inside, just visible, was a baby boy, fast asleep. Under a tuft of jet black hair over his forehead, they could see a curiously shaped cut, like a bolt of lightning. Okay, this will come into play later on, but this is, well, most of us have birthmarks, for example. You could suggest that this is something that they are mentioning because it is unique to Harry. Again, a lot of the times, okay, especially when there's so many things happening in the book or in your story, if they are not super pertinent to the story, like in a way to push the plot forward or in a way to characterize your character, to give them personality, okay, there is no real need to mention it. So notice that they are actually bringing attention to it, right? Under a tuft of jet black hair over his forehead, they could see a curiously shaped cut like a bolt of lightning. "Is that where?" whispered Professor McGonagall. "Yes," said Dumbledore. "He'll have that scar forever." "Couldn't you do something about it, Dumbledore?" "Even if I could, I wouldn't. Scars can come in handy. I have one myself above my left knee that is a perfect map of the London Underground." "Well, give him here, Hagrid. We'd better get this over with." So again, this is another instance of Dumbledore being quite a quirky character, okay? He is suggesting that, okay, for whatever reason, keep the scar because, it's still a mark of what he's been through, even though he doesn't remember it at this moment. And the London Underground is what they call the train system, okay, the subway system in the UK. So he is obviously making a joke here. "Well, give him here, Hagrid. We'd better get this over with." Dumbledore took Harry in his arms and turned towards the Dursleys' house. Could I say goodbye to him, sir?" asked Hagrid. He bent his great, shaggy head over Harry and gave him what must have been a very scratchy, whiskery kiss. Then, suddenly, Hagrid let out a howl like a wounded dog. Okay, so here, he bent his head over Harry and gave him a kiss. But scratchy and whiskery because of his hair, right? We said that he has, what was the descriptions? Bushy black hair and beard. So this is noting that, okay, due to So I think it's a good nod. Instead of just saying, okay, he leaned over and kissed him on the head gently, okay, we give some characteristics. It actually uses this information that we already know about, okay, about his hair. Okay, then suddenly, Hagrid let out a howl like a wounded dog. So I don't know if you can imagine what that sounds like, but, okay, it's emotional. He's very, very sad. He's sobbing, okay. Shh, hissed Professor McGonagall. "You'll wake the muggles." "Sorry," sobbed Hagrid, taking out a large spotted handkerchief and burying his face in it. "But I can't stand it. Lily and James dead, and poor little Harry off to live with muggles." Yes, it's all very sad. But get a grip on yourself, Hagrid, or we'll be found," Professor McGonagall whispered, patting Hagrid gingerly on the arm as Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to the front door. Gingerly here is usually gently and maybe a little bit We use the word gingerly when you are trying to soothe something that is sore. Or for example, if you've fallen over and you've bruised your knee and it's very painful, very tender, you would move gingerly because you're moving in a way that is careful so that you don't hurt the other person, or in a way to soothe or comfort them. So, yeah. Gently, tenderly on the arm. As Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to the front door. He laid Harry gently on the doorstep, took a letter out of his cloak, tucked it inside Harry's blankets, and then came back to the other two. For a full minute, the three of them stood and looked at the little bundle. Hagrid's shoulders shook. Professor McGonagall blinked furiously, and the twinkling light that usually shone from Dumbledore's eyes seemed to have gone out. So now we have come to this important point in the story, okay? Because of all the quirkiness that Dumbledore was giving out, he was eating his sweets, he was chit-chatting, right? And then McGonagall was very serious, very severe, sitting on the garden wall. Okay, Hagrid's come down on his big motorcycle, everything's fine and dandy. And now, what have they done? They've left the baby at the doorstep of the Dursleys. Okay, so notice that they keep using the word little bundle, okay, to really put into perspective that it's to show that it's small, it's weak, it needs care and attention, but they are technically abandoning this baby here, right? But also not quite, because they are giving this baby to its family. Because these people, the Dursleys, whether we like them or not, okay, we only know that the Dursleys just want to be, not different. They want to be extremely normal. And now we know on the other side of things, okay, we are related to this Potter family and all these whimsical things that are happening. Okay, so we don't know what's going to transpire in the future, but we know that it is a difficult situation. Okay, so Hagrid's shoulders shook because he was crying. Professor McGonagall blinked furiously. Why? Because he's trying to blink back tears. And the twinkling light that usually shone from Dumbledore's eyes seemed to have gone out. So the quirkiness, all the little jokes and that vibe and aura he was giving off previously, now gone. Because he's also feeling extremely sad. Okay? Well, said Dumbledore finally, that's that. We've no business staying here. We may as well go and join the celebrations. Yeah, said Hagrid in a very muffled voice. I'd best get this bike away. Good night, Professor McGonagall. Professor Dumbledore, sir. Wiping his streaming eyes on his jacket sleeve, Hagrid swung himself onto the motorcycle and kicked the engine into life. With a roar, it rose into the air and off into the night. Okay, so it wasn't just gentle tears, or he wasn't just like tearing up. He was sobbing. Okay, his tears were streaming uncontrollably. Okay, so good word to use to describe his sadness. Okay, and notice that, okay, while on the other side of the world, okay, they are talking about how this Voldemort was stumped by a child. Okay, he's a murderer, a mass murderer. He was supposed to kill everybody and he's in power, but he's been stumped by this child and now he's gone. So everyone is celebrating because technically this is over, right? They can celebrate this thing. But on this side, on this little side of the UK, in Privet Drive, it's a very sad moment because while all these things have happened, for the rest of the community, okay, this little baby boy has lost his parents and his home, right? So it's a lot of mixed feelings about things here, and it really shows, it helps you build empathy for the characters. Okay, so we may as well go and join the celebrations, he says, but none of them, as you can see in the lines following, okay, he's still streaming eyes, okay, they have sad goodbyes. They are not looking forward to that, okay? I shall see you soon, I expect, Professor McGonagall, said Dumbledore, nodding to her. Professor McGonagall blew her nose in reply. Dumbledore turned and walked back down the street. On the corner, he stopped and took out the silver put-outer. He clicked it once, and 12 balls of light sped back to their street lamps so that Privet Drive glowed suddenly orange, and he could make out a tabby cat slinking around the corner at the other end of the street. He could just see the bundle of blankets on the step of number 4. Good luck, Harry, he murmured. He turned on his heel, and with a swish of his cloak, he was gone. Okay, so all the things that they started the chapter with have all now met its end, right? So it's not just, it's a very good show of wrapping a scene up very nicely in a bow, okay? Because the start, we had all these things, right? The street light shone, there was a lot of owls about, okay, Dumbledore came, this mysterious figure came, opened this put outer, took out all the lights, right? He took all the little lights from the lamps on the street, so it was pitch black. Then there was the imagery of the little cat on the wall, and now all these things have ended, okay, have finished. Okay, he took out the silver put outer, he put back the lights, so now they're all on again, and the tabby cat slinked around the corner. So that's another good word to use, that it quickly and expertly maneuvered so that out of sight, okay, sleuthily. Okay, with a swish of his cloak, because we know that these people are not humans, so they wear cloaks, so, and we know that cloaks drape to the floor, right, to their feet. So with a swish of his cloak, he was gone. Okay, a breeze ruffled the neat hedges of Privet Drive, which lay silent and tidy under the inky sky, the very last place you would expect astonishing things to happen. Harry Potter rolled over inside his blankets without waking up. One small hand closed on the letter beside him, and he slept on, not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous, not knowing he would be woken in a few hours' time by Mrs. Dursley's scream as she opened the front door to put out the milk bottles, nor that he would spend the next few weeks being prodded and pinched by his cousin Dudley. He couldn't know that at this very moment, people meeting in secret all over the country were holding up their glasses and saying in hushed voices, "To Harry Potter, the boy who lived." Okay, so a very, very good end to the first chapter, okay? Also because I'm quite sure that our first chapter is called The Boy Who Lived. Where is our first page? Yes, it is called The Boy Who Lived. So notice that they came to that, right? They used that as the ending sentence. So it really brings the entire chapter to a very nice close. Okay, The Boy Who Lived. So everybody in the world is celebrating this thing that's happened. But again, we've just mentioned on this little corner, this little slice of Surrey, okay, there's a lot of peculiar, sad things that are happening. And we also have a glimpse as to what the next few weeks of Harry assimilating, okay, getting used to and adapting into his new home, okay, would be like. Okay, so a lot of things have happened here. And now we're finished with chapter 1. That was pretty quick, actually. Okay. Hello everybody who's just joined the live. My name is teacher Judith, and we are going through the very first book, Sorcerer's Stone, from the Harry Potter series. Okay, so we've just gone through chapter 1. I hope if you've been sticking around with us, I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Okay, please give this live a like. Maybe follow the Writers at Work page, and we'll keep doing these reading lives throughout the next couple of weeks as well. Let me just take a quick water break before we continue. Okay. The vanishing glass. Now, a lot of curious things, right? Because while most people may not look at the content page before they start reading a book, it is always, I think, a very good sign when the titles are either short and sweet and very captivating, because we don't know what a vanishing glass even talks about, right? What can you even fathom what a vanishing glass is? We have no idea. Okay, it's very unique to this chapter. And like the previous chapter where it starts as The Boy Who Lived, which is very punchy, it's very gripping, right? What do you mean, the boy who lived? And now to the end of that chapter, we figured it out, okay? Because Harry Potter just survived an attempt at murder, right? An attempt by someone else, okay? He almost died, but he didn't. And in the end, the whole world is celebrating. And now we need to figure out why. We need to figure out what is going on. And also notice that everybody around, okay, or not everybody, the characters we've met so far are clued in as to what's going on. But Harry himself, we know, does not know what is happening because he's too young to know, right? So this is the interesting perspective as we go on the journey of this book, because as Harry grows up and as we see from this chapter onwards, it will more and more follow the point of view of Harry Potter. Okay? And it will give us a lot more information about where he is with this information, how he's finding out, how he's going through the motions and living life. Okay? So it's very interesting. Also in this book, we will see his age progression, and if you don't already know, the book follows him in different years at school, right? So one year after another. So it's a almost constant timeline. Okay? So not a lot of time skips at the moment. Yes. So yeah, so here is the first thing. It starts with a time skip. So the first chapter was a bit of the main backstory. Okay? So nearly 10 years had passed since the Dursleys had woken up to find their nephew on the front step, but Privet Drive had hardly changed at all. The sun rose on the same tidy front gardens and lit up the brass number 4 on the Dursleys' front door. It crept into their living room, which was almost exactly the same as it had been on the night when Mr. Dursley had seen that fateful news report about the owls. Only the photographs on the mantelpiece really showed how much time had passed. 10 years ago, there had been lots of pictures of what looked like a large pink beach ball wearing different coloured bonnets. But Dudley Dursley was no longer a baby, and now the photographs showed a large blonde boy riding his first bicycle, on a carousel at the fair, playing a computer game with his father, being hugged and kissed by his mother. The room held no sign at all that another boy lived in this house too. So just one paragraph, but so many things, right? So many things to unpack. Okay, let's take a look. So again, just like the very first paragraph and how we were introduced to the story with Mr. Dursley and the Dursleys need to be normal. Okay, notice that J.K. Rowling does a really good job at emphasizing what she wants us to be focusing on. Okay, so the same tidy front gardens. Sorry. Okay, which was almost exactly the same as it been on the night. Okay, so all these things suggest that nothing has changed. Okay, Privet Drive is as normal as it has ever been. Okay, and the only things that we know are inside the house. Okay, the mantelpiece is typically this shelf or the top part of a fireplace. So okay, fire, some logs. Okay, this area, it's usually the top part. Sometimes some homes have either a TV or like posters up here. And so on this portion, they will place photo frames, I don't know, candles, whatever you like, memorabilia, a statue, okay? So this thing is a mantelpiece. Okay, also because we're looking at the imagery of a very traditional house. Again, this is a very normal house, not out of the ordinary. So we're not talking about a modern home or things like that, but for this time period. So I think this book, the origins started in the 80s, okay? So at this time, when Harry is in his, this is 10 years later, so he's 10 years old, or 10 to 11 years old. It is in the 90s somewhat. So just, yeah. So this would mean that this traditional house is traditional to that time period, okay? Yes. So only the photographs on the mantelpiece really showed how much time had passed. So here, they're talking about all the progression of Dudley Dursley, right? Dudley being the Dursley's only son, right? So many things, okay? He rode his first bicycle. He went to the carousel fair. The carousel is, I cannot draw this, so I'm not going to. But this thing with horses where it moves. I said I wasn't going to, but I still tried. Okay, it's this thing exactly. Okay, that moves. That's the carousel at the fair. So he was likely sitting on one of the horses at the carousel and they're taking pictures of him. He was playing a computer game with his father. He's being kissed by his mother. And the biggest thing, the room held no sign that another boy lived in the house. Especially since the end of the last paragraph, the last chapter, okay, positioned Harry as someone who is known worldwide. He's now famous. But in this house, in this corner of nothing, of this normal area where nothing interesting happens to them, okay, he is just another boy. And even worse still, this family that he lives with does not give him any attention like this. Okay? Nobody knows that he lives there. Yet Harry Potter was still there, asleep at the moment, but not for long. His Aunt Petunia was awake, and it was her shrill voice that made the first noise of the day. Up! Get up! Now! Harry woke with a start. His aunt rapped on the door again. Rapped meaning she tapped her knuckles quickly. Okay? Up! She screeched. Harry heard her walking toward the kitchen and then the sound of the frying pan being put on the stove. He rolled onto his back and tried to remember the dream he had been having. It had been a good one. There had been a flying motorcycle in it. He had a funny feeling he'd had the same dream before. His aunt was back outside the door. Are you up yet? She demanded. Nearly, said Harry. Well, get a move on. I want you to look after the bacon. And don't you dare let it burn. I want everything perfect on Dudley's birthday. Duddy's birthday. So she even has a little pet name for him, right? A nickname, a house name. Okay, this suggests how doting she is of a mother. Okay, also that she is yelling at Harry, right, to quickly do these things because it's Dudley's birthday. You better not mess it up. Okay, Harry groaned. What did you say? His aunt snapped through the door. Nothing. Dudley's birthday. How could he have forgotten? Harry got slowly out of bed and started looking for socks. He found a pair under his bed, and after pulling a spider off of one of them, put them on. Harry was used to spiders because the cupboard under the stairs was full of them, and that was where he slept. So a few things again, okay? So now we know that Petunia is very doting, okay? She's waking him up to say, hey, it's my son's birthday. Wake up, you have a lot of things to be doing, okay? But instead, we already know that, and we know that there's many pictures of Dudley on the mantle, but none of Harry. And not only that, Harry doesn't live in a room. Okay, imagine, he does not live in his own room. He doesn't have his own bed like that. Instead, he sleeps in the cupboard under the stairs. Okay, he's friends with the spiders within the cupboard. Okay, so that tells you about his living situation, as well as maybe how much his aunt and uncle and cousin care about him. Okay, so it can be very lonely. Okay, so just consider all these things, okay, as we move through the story. It will help as you know the context, okay, to figure out his motivations for his decisions. Okay, it helps build his character, and it speaks to the personification of all of it. Okay. When he was dressed, he went down the hall into the kitchen. The table was almost hidden beneath all of Dudley's birthday presents. It looked as though Dudley had gotten the new computer he wanted. Not to mention the second television and the racing bike. Second television and a racing bike. So imagine, he's very well loved. Dudley is spoiled almost. Okay? Exactly why Dudley wanted a racing bike was a mystery to Harry, as Dudley was very fat and hated exercise, unless of course it involved punching somebody. So here, we know that Dudley is a big boy, but it's not just that. He is probably a bully, right? Dudley's favorite punching bag was Harry, but he couldn't often catch him. Harry didn't look it, but he was very fast. So Harry is probably someone who's a little bit more scrawny, okay? And he's fast, he can run away very quickly. And Dudley is Very spoiled and a bully. So many things we've learned already. So Dudley, spoiled, bully, Harry, maybe we could say neglected. He's someone who's neglected. Okay, quick runner. Okay, perhaps it had something to do with living in a dark cupboard, but Harry had always been small and skinny for his age. So this adds on to the description I mentioned that he's quite scrawny. Okay, very small. He looked even smaller and skinnier than he really was because of all he had to wear were old clothes of Dudley's, and Dudley was about 4 times bigger than he was. So another thing, he wears hand-me-downs. Okay, he doesn't wear new clothes. Which is, in a regular context, not a bad thing, because a lot of the time, clothes and things can be very expensive, right? And imagine, okay, just think about this family who didn't expect to have to raise a second child, but they had to. So, putting aside funds and things like that for such an ordeal, because this person is going to live for a very long time, okay, is a lot. Okay, it can be a big strain on the family, but it doesn't excuse the fact that they have neglected him in such a way, okay, that they don't even give him a room or get Dudley to share his room with Harry. Instead, they put Harry in the cupboard under the stairs that's probably dusty and filthy because there are spiders and things that we've seen. And he has got no place on the mantelpiece, okay, so they don't consider him part of the family. Where was I? Here, okay. Harry had a thin face, knobbly knees, black hair, and bright green eyes. So this one, green eyes, okay, black hair. Notice this, okay, it's a stark contrast. It's a very big difference from the Dursley family because Dudley had blonde hair, right? So we can include that here. So Dudley has blonde hair. He's big. Okay, he's very loved. Okay, so the black hair, green eyes compared to the blonde hair, Dudley is quite a big contrast. So we're trying to use that as a tool to show how different they are as well. Okay. He wore round glasses held together with a lot of scotch tape because of all the times Dudley had punched him on the nose. So he wears glasses. Or yeah, actually this thing is that he's known for his round glasses. The only thing Harry liked about his own appearance was a very thin scar on his forehead that was shaped like a bolt of, I think we know how it's going to end, right? Lightning. Okay, so again this adds to the description of Harry. So lightning, bolt, scar. Okay, so he is someone who has glasses, black hair, and a lightning bolt scar, of all the things. Okay, and Dudley is someone big, has blonde hair, is a bully. Okay, so all these things, these are 2 paragraphs-ish of descriptions about their differences. Okay. He had had it as long as he could remember. And the first question he could ever remember asking his Aunt Petunia was how he had gotten it. In the car crash when your parents died, she had said. And don't ask questions. Okay? We already know this is not true, correct? From the previous chapter that his parents had been murdered, right? Or in some way, okay, we don't actually know the specifics, but we know that Harry hadn't died, but his parents had died in the process. Okay? But Aunt Petunia instead is saying that there was a car crash when your parents died. It's a very, very different story. Don't ask questions. That was the first rule for a quiet life with the Dursleys. Uncle Vernon entered the kitchen as Harry was turning over the bacon. "Comb your hair," he barked, by way of a morning greeting. About once a week, Uncle Vernon looked over the top of his newspaper and shouted that Harry needed a haircut. Harry must have had more haircuts than the rest of the boys in his class put together, but it made no difference. His hair simply grew that way, all over the place. Harry was frying eggs by the time Dudley arrived in the kitchen with his mother. Dudley looked a lot like Uncle Vernon. He had a large pink face, not much neck, small, watery blue eyes, thick blonde hair that lay smoothly on his thick, fat head. Aunt Petunia often said that Dudley looked like a baby angel. Harry often said that Dudley looked like a pig in a wig. So we can tell from this here, okay, it's not a very nice description, but we can tell how Harry feels about Dudley, right? He does not like him. So Harry does not like Dudley, and Dudley, because he bullies Harry, obviously doesn't like Harry either. Okay, so Dudley, again we know, he's got blonde hair, blue eyes, and Harry has black hair and green eyes. So definitely can't even pass as the same family, right? So they don't have similar eye color, things like that. Harry put the plates of egg and bacon on the table, which was difficult as there wasn't much room. Dudley, meanwhile, was counting his presents. His face fell. 36, he said, looking up at his mother and father. That's 2 less than last year. Darling, you haven't counted Auntie Marge's present, see? It's here under this big one from Mummy and Daddy. All right, 37 then, said Dudley, going red in the face. Harry, who could see a huge Dudley tantrum coming on, began wolfing down his bacon as fast as possible in case Dudley turned the table over. Aunt Petunia obviously scented danger too, because she said quickly, "And we'll buy you another 2 presents while we're out today. How's that, Pumpkin? 2 more presents. Is that all right?" So notice that, okay, I don't know if you see how crazy this is, but he has 37 presents and it's not enough. Okay, this is further information to tell us about how spoiled Dudley is, right? And then here it says, Aunt Petunia obviously scented danger. Another good word to use, okay, is another way to say she smelled danger, right? It's a good phrasal verb. And we'll buy you another 2 presents, we're out today. Yes, Popkin, another fond name she has for him, another nickname, okay? 2 more presents. So now they're ready to get him 39 presents in total. I don't know, but if I were Dudley, I think I'd be quite happy having so many presents. Okay? Dudley thought for a moment. It looked like hard work. Finally, he said slowly, so I'll have 39, sweetums, said Aunt Petunia. Oh. Dudley sat down heavily and grabbed the nearest parcel. All right, then. Uncle Vernon chuckled. Little Tyke wants his money's worth, just like his father. Attaboy, Dudley. He ruffled Dudley's hair. At that moment, the telephone rang, and Aunt Petunia went to answer it, while Harry and Uncle Vernon watched Dudley unwrap the racing bike, a video camera, a remote-control airplane, 16 new computer games, and a VCR. He was ripping the paper off a gold wristwatch when Aunt Petunia came back from the telephone, looking both angry and worried. Okay, so quite a few things here. Again, because I've mentioned that from this chapter onwards, a lot of the story follows the point of view of Harry. Again, and we know that Harry doesn't like Dudley, right? So here it says, Dudley thought for a moment. It looked like hard work, okay? It's a very cheeky thing to say, okay? It's trying to tell us that Harry doesn't think Dudley is very bright, okay? Or that Dudley is really not very bright, okay? So it looked like hard work, meaning that he couldn't even figure out what 37 plus 2 was, okay? And it was Aunt Petunia who told him, okay? And you see, Uncle Vernon, okay, Vernon Dursley, the father, okay, he does not care that Dudley is so spoiled. He's quite happy about it. Okay, he says little Tyke wants his money's worth just like his father. He's so tickled by this that Dudley, wants to make sure that he's getting more than he needs to. Okay, and then he unwrapped all of his present, which is a lot of things. Okay, and here he has a VCR. Okay, I don't know if anybody knows what a VCR is anymore, but in the 90s, okay, for TVs, they have this thing called VCR, which is a tape. Okay, so instead of CDs or now just everything's online, but they had VCRs for movies, for music, all sorts of things. Okay, so he got a VCR. What else? And then it comes to the end of the paragraph where we are now changing scene. So our Aunt Petunia came back on the telephone looking both angry and worried. Okay. Bad news, Vernon, she said. Mrs. Figg's broken her leg. She can't take him. She jerked her head in Harry's direction. Dudley's mouth fell open in horror, but Harry's heart gave a leap. Every year on Dudley's birthday, his parents took him and a friend out for the day. To adventure parks, hamburger restaurants, or the movies. Every year, Harry was left behind with Mrs. Figg, a mad old lady who lived 2 streets away. Harry hated it there. The whole house smelled of cabbage, and Mrs. Figg made him look at photographs of all the cats she'd ever owned. So Mrs. Figg is a crazy cat lady who they obviously know to some degree because they trust them enough to leave Harry at her house. Okay, and they again have neglected Harry very much so, right? So instead of bringing Harry along to Dudley's birthday things, it's always Dudley's friend instead. And they don't even include him on any of the festivities. Okay? Now what? Said Aunt Petunia, looking furiously at Harry as though he'd planned this. Harry knew he ought to feel sorry that Mrs. Figg had broken her leg, but it wasn't easy when he reminded himself it would be a whole year before he had to look at Tibbles, Snowy, Mr. Paws, and Tufty again. We could phone Marge, Uncle Vernon suggested. Don't be silly, Vernon. She hates the boy. The Dursleys often spoke about Harry like this, as though he wasn't there, or rather, as though he was something very nasty that couldn't understand them, like a slug. Okay, so all these things are actually really, really sad, okay? So Harry is being abused in this way, right? He's being neglected. And it's not just that, he's being hated in front of him, okay? They're not even quiet about this hatred they have for him. And they don't care that people don't like him either, because they also don't like him. And they make it very apparent. So it's always reminding Harry of his position in the household, that you are not part of our family, we don't care about you, you are here, you are disservice to us, okay? You are an inconvenience to us, so many things. Okay, so imagine being 10, 11 years old and experiencing that, okay? I really hope none of you have to ever experience such a thing, but yeah. So, don't worry though, he comes out of it, okay? His life is not always like this, because things will get better, okay? What about, what's her name? Your friend, Yvonne. On vacation in Mallorca, snapped Aunt Petunia. You could just leave me here, Harry put in hopefully. He'd be able to watch what he wanted on television for a change, and maybe even have a go on Dudley's computer. Aunt Petunia looked as though she'd just swallowed a lemon. So lemons, we know, are extremely sour, right? So not everybody can handle a whole lemon. I definitely can't. I like sour things, but not a whole lemon. Okay? So imagine what her crumpled face might look like. It may be in disgust or in like, like how dare you suggest such a thing? Okay. So again, good expression, good imagery to use to show what she might be likely feeling. And come back and find the house in ruins, she snarled. I won't blow up the house, said Harry, but they weren't listening. I suppose we could take him to the zoo, said Aunt Petunia slowly, and leave him in the car. That car's new. He's not sitting in it alone. Dudley began to cry loudly. In fact, he wasn't really crying. It had been years since he'd really cried. But he knew that if he screwed up his face and wailed, his mother would give him anything he wanted. Dinky Duddydums, don't cry. Mommy won't let him spoil your special day, she cried, flinging her arms around him. So clearly, he knows what works, right? He knows that he can pretend that he's crying. And his mother brings out even more pet names for him because she dotes on him so. Okay? And notice they don't even care about Harry's comfort, whether he wants to be involved or not. They just can't wait to get rid of him. And instead, they're like, I don't want to leave him at home in case our house burns down. I don't want to leave him in the car in case he blows up the car. They don't trust him and they don't like him. So, yeah, Harry is just... He doesn't even want to be there, to be honest. I don't want him to come, Dudley yelled between huge pretend sobs. He always spoils everything. He shot Harry a nasty grin through the gap in his mother's arms. So here we know that Dudley is quite evil, okay? He's putting on this theatre show for his parents because his parents believe it. Just then, the doorbell rang. Oh, good Lord, they're here, said Aunt Petunia frantically. And a moment later, Dudley's best friend, Piers Polkiss, walked in with his mother. Piers was a scrawny boy with a face like a rat. He was usually the one who held people's arms behind their backs while Dudley hit them. Dudley stopped pretending to cry at once. So we know that Piers is also a bully. Half an hour later, Harry, who couldn't believe his luck, was sitting in the back of the Dursleys' car with Piers and Dudley, on the way to the zoo for the first time in his life. His aunt and uncle hadn't been able to think of anything else to do with him, but before they'd left, Uncle Vernon had taken Harry aside. I'm warning you, he had said, putting his large purple face right up close to Harry's. I'm warning you now, boy. Any funny business, anything at all, and you'll be in that cupboard from now until Christmas. I'm not going to do anything, said Harry, honestly. But Uncle Vernon didn't believe him. No one ever did. Okay? So this further drives home the fact that Harry is he knows where he stands in the food chain, okay, how important he is in this household. He knows nobody cares about him, nobody listens to him. Even going to the zoo for the first time is supposed to be an exciting experience for most kids. He can't enjoy it because he doesn't want to be there, because he knows that they don't want to bring him anyway, okay? So going somewhere when you're feeling constantly unwanted is terrible, okay? The problem was, strange things often happened around Harry, and it was just no good telling the Dursleys he didn't make them happen. Once, Aunt Petunia, tired of Harry coming back from the barber's looking as though he hadn't been at all, had taken a pair of kitchen scissors and cut his hair so short it was almost bald except for his bangs, which she left to hide that horrible scar. Dudley had laughed himself silly at Harry, who spent a sleepless night imagining school the next day, where he was already laughed at for his baggy clothes and taped glasses. Next morning, however, he had gotten up to find his hair exactly as it had been before Aunt Petunia had sheared it off. He had been given a week in his cupboard before this, even though he had tried to explain that he couldn't explain how he had grown back so quickly. I mean, imagine going to the barber shop, okay, having the worst haircut of your life, and then you wake up in the morning and it's back to normal. Okay, most people wouldn't be able to believe it, right? So in this case as well, Harry's just like, I have no idea how it happened. You can't blame me for that. And he doesn't understand why he's being blamed for such a thing. Okay, it feels ridiculous. Okay, also again, his taped glasses, because based on the fact that the family can afford Dudley's 39 presents, it's not that they can't afford to buy him new glasses. They simply don't want to. Okay, so this adds again to the neglect. Okay, and the fact that he's laughed for the baggy clothes, so they don't try to buy him things that actually fit him. Okay, which are obviously basic necessities. Okay. Another time, Aunt Petunia had been trying to force him into a revolting old sweater of Dudley's, brown with orange puffballs. The harder she tried to pull it over his head, the smaller it seemed to become, until finally it might have fitted a hand puppet, but certainly wouldn't fit Harry. Aunt Petunia had decided it must have shrunk in the wash, and, to his great relief, Harry wasn't punished. Okay? So, the word revolting here is disgusting. Okay? Another word for disgusting. brown and orange sweater. But in real time, while she was trying to pull it over his head, it started getting smaller and smaller until it only fit a hand puppet. Okay, so all these little strange happenings they cannot explain. But usually they would blame Harry, but this time she didn't. Okay. On the other hand, he'd gotten into terrible trouble for being found on the roof of the school kitchens. Dudley's gang had been chasing him as usual when, as much to Harry's surprise as anyone else's, there he was sitting on the chimney. The Dursleys had received a very angry letter from Harry's headmistress telling them Harry had been climbing school buildings. But all he tried to do, as he shouted at Uncle Vernon through the locked door of his cupboard, was jump behind the big trash cans outside the kitchen doors. Harry supposed that the wind must have caught him mid-jump. So can you imagine that explanation? Okay, you don't know how you wound up on the roof of a building, okay, but everybody believes that you climbed up there somehow. Okay, even though you're not known to be a climber or athletic in this way. Okay, we only know that Harry is fast, not that he's a climber. Okay, and that it's supposed to be a plausible enough explanation that even Harry is convincing himself, maybe it was the wind that pushed me up there. We definitely know that's not true. Unless you have hurricane gale force winds, okay? Not happening. But today, nothing was going to go wrong. It was even worth being with Dudley and Pierce to be spending the day somewhere that wasn't school. His cupboard or Mrs. Figg's cabbage-smelling living room. While he drove, Uncle Vernon complained to Aunt Petunia. He liked to complain about things. People at work, Harry, the council, Harry, the bank, and Harry were just a few of his favorite subjects. This morning, it was motorcycles. Okay, so this is also a good use of, again, repetition to drive home the point. Okay, that Harry also knows that Uncle Vernon does not like him. Oh, let's use a color that's not so dark. Okay, Harry and Harry again. Okay, now he's complaining about motorcycles. Roaring along like maniacs, the young hoodlums, he said, as a motorcycle overtook them. I had a dream about a motorcycle, said Harry, remembering suddenly. It was flying. Uncle Vernon nearly crashed into the car in front. He turned right around in his seat and yelled at Harry, his face like a gigantic beet with a mustache. Motorcycles don't fly. Okay, beet as in beetroot. Okay, because gigantic beet with a mustache. We've already established that Vernon Dursley gets very red or purple in the face when he's angry or upset, right? In previous paragraphs, they've used this analogy again and again. So this is just another way to explain it. Okay? Dudley and Pierce sniggered. I know they don't, said Harry. It was only a dream. But he wished he hadn't said anything. If there was one thing the Dursleys hated even more than his asking questions, it was his talking about anything, acting in a way it shouldn't. No matter if it was in a dream or even a cartoon, they seemed to think he might get dangerous ideas. Okay, this also adds on to the fact that we already know that the Dursleys have an obsession with being normal, right? So even him talking about his dreams was too much for them. They don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to hear about it at all. Okay. Hello, Eunice, and we have actually quite a few people today. So we have about 40 people on the live. Hello, welcome to our noon read now. Okay, my name is Teacher Judith. We're just going through chapter 2 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So again, if you have any comments, any suggestions, you want us to go through any books in the future, if any of you have actually read Harry Potter and you like it, feel free to leave comments in the chat, okay? Hello, Saf Grace. Actually, good point for me to take another break. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.